Well, hello there. How are you guys doing? This is Rob of Rule of Two Review. Welcome back to the channel, and we have some pretty great news to discuss today, and that is that Metroid Dread has officially become the best-selling Metroid game of all time. That's right, the day we've all been waiting for, really one of the days we've all been waiting for, if we're being honest, has finally come. We've gotten the updated Nintendo sales numbers for all things Nintendo, all things Switch, all of their hardware, all of their biggest and best-selling software on the Switch. We finally got these updated numbers for Q1 of 2022, which was exciting for so many reasons, and there is a lot of stuff and a lot of cool things to break down. Some very good, some less good. The Switch itself just continuing to do absolutely fantastically. But one of the main things that a lot of us were waiting for, obviously I was waiting for it as a Metroid fan, and I know that a lot of you who follow my channel were doing the same as Metroid fans, is that we were waiting for the new update on Metroid Dread's total lifetime sales. Now, as we know, the game released back in October 2021, and the last time we got an update on its lifetime sales was for Q4 of that year, which means we got sales totals for the release date in October 8th, all the way up to December 31st, the last day of the year for 2021. So about 2 months and 3 or so weeks, right? So not quite 3 months worth of time. And it had sold 2.74 million units, which was incredibly impressive for the Metroid series. I mean, it's incredible for any franchise. But the thing is, everyone compares something like Metroid or any franchise to everything else that's Nintendo's, right? If you talk about Nintendo franchises, everyone compares Nintendo franchises. And Nintendo franchises, some of them tend to sell astronomically well to the point that almost no one in the industry could keep up with them. It's just this weird, unique quality to some of Nintendo's biggest series. And so people were holding maybe Metroid to the same standard, so you could argue that almost 3 million in 2.5 months isn't the most. But let's be real, for most games that release on the planet, that's a huge number. And so, anyway, in that first 2021 lifetime, 2.5 months, we had 2.74 million units. We were now waiting for Q1 to see, did we cross 3 million units? And just what is that total altogether, right? And so, like I said at the beginning, we officially got that total. It is mostly good news. There is a disappointing element, but it's definitely not a hugely negative thing. And so let's look at the actual totals. As of March 31st, 2022, which basically means almost 6 months worth of life on the shelves available for people to buy, physical and digital, Metroid Dread has sold 2.9 million copies. Of course, if you look at this handy chart here, it is definitely very interesting to see how things break down. Most titles have sold over 1 million units. There's a couple of them like the Trilogy, Zero Mission, Samus Returns that sold less than 1 million. I was pretty sure Metroid Other M sold exactly 1 million, but this chart is showing it as a little bit less, so I'm not quite sure about that. But overall, most of them have sold over 1 million copies. The only game that has sold almost as much as Metroid Dread at this point is my favorite game of all time, Metroid Prime, at 2.84 million units. And so what this means is that with Metroid Dread now at 2.9 million, it has surpassed Metroid Prime's 2.84 million to become, like I said, the best-selling Metroid game of all time, and it did it in less than 6 months, you guys. March 31st was a week before April 8th, and April 8th was the 6-month anniversary of Metroid Dread, which means it was literally less than 6 months for this game to almost crack 3 million in sales. Now, if we spend a minute focusing on maybe the less exciting part about this, right, it's the fact that we didn't hit that 3 million unit mark, right? I think that was kind of a goal or a barometer that I think a lot of us wanted to see the game hit this quickly in just 6 months' time, right? By the end of Q1 2022, we were all hoping to see Metroid Dread at 3 million or more. I thought for sure it was going to be over 3 million. I'll even be honest with you guys. I didn't even really question it. I was like, oh yeah, it's definitely hit 3 million. If it was 2.74 at the end of 2021, now you add 3 more months worth of sales, how could it not possibly get another 260,000 sales? And it turns out it didn't quite do that. It got 160,000 worth of sales, right? Because we're still 100,000 copies sold away from that 3 million unit mark. But it still didn't manage to do that. And You know, I mean, of course, I think I would be lying if I didn't tell you that it's sad to see we didn't quite yet hit that number. And I think that most of you might be lying to yourselves if you think that that's not disappointing, right? All of us wanted it to see it hit that 3 million unit goal. And it's not just because my good buddy RGT said that he would play a really crappy game, Balan Wonderland, that he doesn't want to play for the 3 million thing. I mean, that's fun, and I talked about it on a video. We're all having a good laugh about that, and he is too, to be fair. But, you know, that aside, just as far as what it would mean for the Metroid series, that's why I was mostly invested in it. It is a shame we didn't yet hit 3 million. But if we go back to why this is still very good news, A, it's the main thing here that it's become the most successful Metroid game of all time, so it's nothing but good things for the Metroid franchise as far as we should see it and as far as Nintendo should see it. And the other thing is, it's 2.9 million. I mean, in the next handful of months, it's going to cross 3 million as well. In fact, I don't see how the game won't be over 3 million by the time we get quarter two's totals. And I know it's funny because I said that that would happen with quarter one. Most of us thought that that was going to happen in quarter one this year. And it didn't. We got right up to the edge, man. We're just knocking on the door of 3 million unit sales for Metroid Dread. It's going to happen. It's probably going to happen in this next quarter, right? How could it not sell another 100,000 units? Like, it's just going to happen. But even if we live in some weird, crazy, bizarro world where it doesn't happen in quarter two, we ultimately, I just have to tell you guys, this game is going to hit 3 million units in sales at worst. And I mean worst, within its first entire year on the market, right? So that means between now and October 8th, it's only May 10th right now. Between now and October 8th, this game is going to sell 100,000 more units. I mean, come on. Here's the thing. Being May 10th right now means we have over an additional month's worth of sales on top of the 2.9 million being reported here, right? We can't forget that. This is only March 31st that these sales encompass at 2.9 million, which means we've already had, you know, a month and 10 days since that date. So that could have been another, you know, 20 or something, 10, 20, 30,000 units worth of sales. And then whatever continues throughout the rest of the year. I mean, so just, you do the math and you realize that there's no way Metroid Dread won't hit 3 million in its first year. And so I think the last point to leave you guys with here and wrap this up is that I think that my lifetime sales prediction, I actually might lower it a little bit, okay? And I don't want anyone to take this as a huge negative. I was thinking around 4 million for lifetime sales for Metroid Dread on the Switch, right? Not counting any future re-releases like in 15 years or whatever. But if we just talk about right now, the current 2021 game, on the Nintendo Switch specifically, I feel that maybe 4 million isn't as likely because I will admit, this slowed down. Even though it's still impressive and it's the best-selling Metroid game and it's good news, it did slow down in quarter one this year more than I expected. My honest prediction was probably around 3.2 or 3.3 million, what we were going to see. That it had sold, you know, several hundred thousand, maybe even 500,000, 500,000 more copies in the first quarter of the year. And it sold 160,000. So not terrible, but definitely less than I expected by about half or so, right? And so eventually, you know, this game will still keep selling even beyond its first year. But I don't know that 4 million is my target anymore. It's still possible. I think 4 million is maybe the ceiling for this game on the Nintendo Switch. But I think 3.5 million is probably more than likely what's going to happen. And I think that that's my prediction, right? So still good, still impressive for any video game, no matter what it is. Very impressive for the Metroid franchise. At this point, we've already hit the ceiling of their respective franchise. So Nintendo has an absolute win of a Metroid game on their hands with Metroid Dread. So everything else from here is just a bonus. It can only go up no matter how many more copies they sell. We know it's going to hit 3 million this year. Maybe it gets past that. I'm hoping for 3.5 to 4 million, you know, and, you know, again, not including any future re-releases that could add on to its total. So if we end up in that 3.5 to 4 million range, that's great, man. That's a win. You saw the graph at the beginning of this, man. Most Metroid games get between 1 and 1.5 million, okay? There's only the rare exception of Metroid Prime getting a 2.84, and we've already crushed that now with Metroid Dread, and it's going to continue to sell. So overall, this is great news. This is a great win. Yes, it's a shame we didn't hit 3 million, but I don't think it's a huge negative for the series, because 3 million is still right around the corner anyway, and this game is doing great things for the Metroid franchise and for Samus which is what we all want as Metroid fans, right? So that's what I think. That's how the numbers break down. That's the big sales update. I want to know what you guys think. You've heard my thoughts. Yeah, I'm positive about this because I'm a Metroid fan and I see the win of becoming the #1 Metroid game. But there is the argument to not hitting 3 million just yet, and so I want to hear you guys talk about what do you see as positives, what do you see as negatives, where do you see the future of Metroid Dread going, how do you think it helps the franchise going forward. I didn't even talk about how I think Metroid Prime 4 itself is going to crush even Metroid Dread's numbers when that game comes out. That's another different conversation, as well as breaking down the rest of the sales numbers. I might do that later this week as well. So either way, discuss all this stuff below. And with that, this video is a wrap. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of Two Review, and I'll catch you next time on another video. Bye-bye.